Well, hello again, people. What we got here today is a Martin D-18 1937 Authentic. And this is one of the newer ones. This is a 22 or 23, I can't remember. Just got it in for a checkup. And I'm going to go through the process of checking this guitar out. This is stock, untouched. Well, it's almost stock. The pins have been changed. And I'm going to show you the process, just like I did on the Epiphone Joe Bonamassa. On the last video, the process of looking at this one, except this is an acoustic guitar. So, out of the box, what do I look for on an acoustic guitar? Now, a lot of it's going to be the same stuff, but there's different ways to adjust it. For instance, this one does not have an adjustable truss rod. So, we are stuck pretty much with the relief that we've got on this one. And we're going to find out what we got here, okay? So, first thing I'm going to do is look at the relief. And on this one, again, it's just going to be a quick and dirty method. So, I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to hold the first fret down. I'm going to hold it down here at the 12th fret, which is going to be, I'm actually holding it at the 13th fret. I'm going backwards, and I'm looking at that relief, and it's small. It's something like 4 or 5 thousandths of an inch at most, you know. It's good. I'm not going to make any changes to it. Well, would have to refret it to do that. But the relief looks great. No concerns there. I will get you an exact number right now, just so you can see. Because I like numbers, you know. Let's see what we get. But just looking at it, I can tell you there's nothing to be concerned about. It looks really good. Let's try 6 thousandths of an inch first of all. So here's the 6 thousandths, and I'm going to pop it up here, hold it down again, come up here. 6 thousandths of an inch just clears. It wouldn't hurt if it was a little bit lower, but I'm not going to worry about it. Alright, and then the next thing we're going to do is look at the nut slot. And again, what I do is just hold it up here. Let's move the camera here just a little bit. Hold it between the 2nd and the 3rd fret and take a look at the 1st fret. This one clears a little bit. I'm gonna measure it. I'm gonna use that extrapolation technique. See if we can get that down just a hair. Same thing with the A. Yeah, I think the nut slots are maybe 2 thousandths of an inch high. But let's see what we got before I get too excited about this. So here's a 6 thousandths and 8 thousandths of an inch. And I'm going to hold it at the 1st fret. And remember, when I'm using the extrapolation technique, it is relative. You cannot take these numbers and transfer them to another guitar, but unless they have the exact same specs. It's just a relative number. What it does is it lets me measure a bigger space here than looking at a tiny little gap. So once again, I hold it at the 1st fret, and I measure the clearance at the 2nd fret. And it's well over 6 thousandths, it's well over 8 thousandths. And this is influenced it's influenced directly by the height of the saddle. So that's why you can't take that measurement and go anywhere else with it. But it's a relative measurement for this guitar. So let's try 16. And I see a hair of clearance at 16. So it's probably 18. And I'll show you what we're going to do with this number. And let's check it with an 18. Here's an 18 thousandths of an inch. 1st fret, clearance at the 2nd. And 18 just perfect. So therefore, the 1st fret open should be about 20 thousandths of an inch, possibly 22. I'm going to check 20 and see what I get. And it's quite a bit high. Let's see what 22 looks like. If I have a 22, I do. Here's a 22. If it's 22, I'm going to leave it alone. Yeah, it's like 23. I'm going to leave the nut alone. It's not that bad. I might one little 5 swipe, but it's not bad. Now the action feels high to me, so let's see what we got on the action. And this is a stock authentic action. It's never been adjusted. They typically come a little bit high. So feeler gauges, Check it out here at the 12th fret. Let's make sure I can see this. I can. Move the camera here a little bit. There. So, feeler gauge, I just got a big stack of feeler gauges here. Ha! First try. And that's a pretty high action. 125. 125. So, yeah, that feels high. I would like for it to be more like 95. That's 30 thousandths of an inch. Between 125 and 95 is 30 thousandths of an inch. So that's going to take 60 thousandths of an inch at the saddle. And so we get 145. We haven't really got enough saddle to work with here. Guitar almost needs a neck reset right straight out of the box, which is not unusual on Authentics. I have seen this almost every one of them. Almost every single one of them has got this high action thing. Now I'm going to lower it and I'm going to get it down lower. I'm going to work with the saddle that I have here and see what I can do with it. So they will sometimes go down more than you would think when you lower it. Sometimes you lower it a little bit here and it gets it down into playable condition. But 125 is pretty high. I mean, that's 1/8 of an inch, right? Yeah, that's high. So let's take a look at the treble. And I know all this stuff, oh, bluegrass players, oh, baloney. You know, I measured professional bluegrass players' actions, and the average action of someone like, you know, like I could cut my players into basically 3 groups. You got the guys who are lead flat pickers like David Greer and Sean Watkins, Tony Rice, guys that are very much lead flat pickers, Brian Sutton. Then you have guys that are rhythm guys with some lead, Tim Stafford, Richard Bennett. I'm just naming the people whose guitars I've actually measured. You know, Jack Lawrence, Kenny Smith, guys like that tend to fall into this camp. And then you got guys who are strictly rhythm players or mostly rhythm players and play hard rhythm. Larry Sparks, some of the old bluegrass guys, you know, Jimmy Martin, you know. So there's 3 groups. The rhythm players have got higher actions, but I never measured a professional guitar that was 125 thousandths of an inch. Never. Most people, Kenny Smith, Tim Stafford, Richard Bennett, those guys in that group were all right around 100 thousandths of an inch at the 12th fret. And the guys like David Greer, you know, when I measured his guitar that he was playing at that time in Nashville Guitar Company, you know, this is 20 years ago, it was about 93 thousandths of an inch at the low E, and very even. And then Sean Watkins, who played with Nickel Creek, he was with Nickel Creek at the time, had a Collings. That's the one I measured, and he was plugging in at the time. He had like 80 thousandths of an inch low E. He had the lowest action of the whole bunch. And he's plugged in, he's playing advanced acoustic music, you know what I mean? I mean, he's all over the neck. He's playing almost electric guitar stuff. So, and he's not playing hard. He's in a trio. So he didn't have to play hard, and so he could get by at that low action. But none of those guys had an action of 125 thousandths of an inch. So you can say what you want about bluegrass players and high actions, but not a single professional that I measured, and I measured probably 30 of them when I was working with Flat Picking Guitar Magazine. I was a contributing editor for 10 years or so. I measured a lot of guitars. Not a single one of them was up in this range. So if I get this down to 100 thousandths of an inch, you know, I can live with that. But this is a high action, and this whole thing about bluegrass players needing high actions is baloney. That is actually amateur bluegrass musicians think they need high actions, and they don't. It's all in the technique. I mean, you know, Tony Rice, you know. All right, so let's see what we have on the treble side. I'm going to take a 90 thousandths of an inch, and I'm going to scoot it across here and just see what I get. And like the B, The B is about 92 thousandths of an inch. And the treble E is less than. So I'm going to throw an 84 in there. That's a 76 and an 8. 84 thousandths of an inch. So that's not bad. I like it about 80 thousandths of an inch. So let's see. If it's 84, I'm going to drop 8 thousandths. I'm going to drop 10 thousandths of an inch over here. I would like to drop 60 over here, and I'm not going to make it 60. So let's see what we got in the middle. Again, I cleared 90. Let's see if 96, what the 96 looks like. I'd like the G and the G to be 87 thousandths. And so this is 96. High. High. So we have what we have is a high bass side. All right, now if you look at the saddle, you will see that it's uneven, which is good. The treble is quite a bit lower than the bass side. And if we get over here, let's bring the camera over here. Let's look at the break angle here, because the break angle is important. And see the angle of the low E coming up over here? We have a very strong break angle. It's a little bit weaker over here on the treble side. And let's get the camera in there as close as I can get it. And see that break angle? It's a little bit weak, but it's not bad. I mean, that's decent, you know. This one's pretty strong, so I am fairly comfortable about dropping that saddle. And I'm sure someday this guitar is going to get a neck reset, and at that point, then we can put the tall saddle back in there. The tall saddle does not produce significantly more or literally more sound. You'd be surprised. On a lightly built guitar like this, having a lower saddle can actually give you kind of a sweeter tone. And my experience is when it has a tall saddle, the guitar tends to be a little thuddy in the rear. So the point is I don't really like super tall saddles. 140, what'd I get, 145 on this E? Ideally, I would like to see 125. And I'm getting 145, which to me is a little bit of a tall saddle. If I was resetting the neck, I would like to have a saddle that's 125 thousandths of an inch tall. That's my favorite saddle height right there on a lightly built guitar like this. And it could get down to 100 thousandths of an inch. I wouldn't send a neck reset home at 100 thousandths of an inch, unless there was some other reason. But you could lower it clear down to 100 thousandths, even 90 thousandths of an inch, without panicking too much. So I feel comfortable I can lower the saddle a little bit without, it's certainly not going to compromise the sound. And then eventually the guitar is going to need neck reset, and at that point you can put a 125 saddle back in. So what I'm going to do here to adjust this, I'm just going to show you the quick process. It's not that bad, really. This saddle is glued in. It's a vintage glued in saddle. You cannot take it out, and you can't sand it from the bottom. I almost never sand saddles from the bottom anyways, just because I don't have any control over it. You're sanding it from the bottom, and you're just sanding it. It's an even thing, and I'm nearly always going to adjust it differently, like we just saw right here. I'm not going to adjust the treble side nearly as much as I'm going to adjust the bass side. So I almost never adjust saddles uniformly. Now, if you do a long saddle from the bass, then it shortens it. And so what's going to happen is the wings don't fit anymore, and it's just not going to work. So we're going to lower it from the top every time. And I should get a spec sheet going on this. So that's what I'm going to do. Here we go. Here's my spec sheet. And I'm not going to show you the whole process here. I'm going to cut because it's a little bit of a tedious process. And here's my pencil. So this is a D-18 37 Authentic. And today is April. No, it's May. All right, my goal is 93 thousandths, 90 thousandths, 87, 87, 84, and 80. I like my trebles just a little bit higher because that's where your lead playing is going to happen, and I like that feel. If it gets down too low, yeah, it doesn't fight me quite enough. And 80,000 is pretty good already. You know that I'm not fighting the guitar at 8,000. Now, if it dropped a little bit lower than that, just a couple thousand, I'm not going to complain. But this is my goal, and I typically like to have my D and the G the same. I'll show you hitting your G run, so I like to have a little bit more there, and I just like that. I like this action a little bit better than I like a pure step down. So instead of going 93, 90, 87, 84, 80, and 76. I like to have the D and the G the same, and then I do a step down. And that's my personal taste, and that's what I'm going to start out. So my test, or actually what it came in at, starting, came in at 125, and then over on the little E, it was 84, and then the G was 96, and the D was about 100, because it was clear in the 96, and then the A is something like 110, something like that. It's not that picky just yet. So I want a pretty big change here, man. From 93 to 125 is 60 thousandths of an inch, 65 thousandths of an inch, and I'm not going to make that. I'm going to get close. From 110 to 90 is 30. Yeah, no. 20 times 2 is 40. And 87 to 100 is 13 times 2 is 26. That's 50. Right? I'm not right on that 120. That's 100. Yeah, I am. But I might not be 110. It might be a little higher than that. Maybe 115. So, but anyways, 90 would be 100. That's 10. That's 20 times 2 is 40. 87 would be 13. Doubled would be 26. 26, not 50. I've already doubled it once. So 100 minus 87 is 13. So 25. Yeah, that makes more sense. And 87, 96, that's 10 times 2 is 20 thousandths. Yeah, now we're going down. And I don't know what the B is, but we'll get there. And 84 and 80, that's 8. Let's just call it 10. 10,000. So I'm going to go 15 on the B because that's in line. So we're going to drop 65, 40, 25, 20, 15, to 10. So I've got a decreasing drop as I go across here. So there's a prime example of why I almost never am adjusting strings equally. It's always one side's higher than the other, or sometimes one string is higher than the other string, or something like that. So a lot of times you will find that the D's and the G's are higher than the other strings, and I've seen cases if the A and the D are higher than the E, then the thing is going to really play like a truck. It's going to feel really weird to me. So, alright, so this is just a quick deal here. And yeah, you would like for this guitar to come in perfectly set up for with the money you spend on the thing, but it's not going to happen. Martin sets it up high for the reason so that you can adjust this thing. So, alright, so because if it was too low, you'd have to put a new saddle in. Now all I got to do is knock it down a little bit. I wish they'd have gave me a little bit more neck reset, but a little bit more neck angle. So I'm going to measure this saddle back here, and it's 145. Start. I'm going to call this saddle. I'm measuring the saddle out of the bridge, and it's 145. I'm not going to be able to drop it 65, but I'm going to get it better. And this one is 130. So you can see it decreasing. That's going to be close. This is 120. Yeah, by the time, just looking at my numbers here quickly, by the time, if I shot to where I wanted to, I would end up with about 90 thousandths of an inch of saddle very consistently. So 145 minus 65 would give me 80. And 130 minus 40 would give me 90. 120 minus 25 would give me 95. So you see, I'd have just about 90 thousandths of an inch of saddle left. But I'm getting a much more consistent saddle right now. So this one's 120. And I would drop at 20, so I'd have 100 thousandths of an inch left. And then I've got 15. And it's 115. So we could have just about 100 thousandths of an inch of saddle and make the action pretty good. And 100. And I'm only dropping at 10 thousandths there. Okay. All right, so here's my spec sheet. Okay. Let's see if I got it on the camera here. There's my spec sheet. Alright, so my saddle is 145. I'm going to drop at 65. I'm not going to make it. And 130, I'm going to drop at 40. That'd be 90 thousandths left. And 120 minus 125, or 25, that'd be 95. 120 minus 20, I'd have 100 left. 115 minus 15, I'd have 100 left. And 100 minus 10, I would have 90. So just as a quick rule of thumb here, if I have 100 thousandths of an inch of saddle across the board, it's going to be really close. It's going to be close enough that I think I can make it work. Now, to lower this saddle right here in the guitar, there's a couple ways you can do this. I have a whole video on this. One way, my file, here it is. One way is you just take a file. If you're scared about scratching the top, that's fine. Be cautious. Get yourself something like this. Make sure there's nothing on the bottom that's going to scratch the top. You're trying to protect the top. You don't want to scratch it with some dirt or something that's on the bottom. But go ahead and put a thing on it if you want to. I like to use, at this point, to get it going a little bit faster, I like to just use a utility razor blade. And what I do is start scraping it. And let's move our camera in here a little bit closer. And you can see the process, perhaps, a little bit better. Okay, hang on. I accidentally hit the off button on the GoPro when I was doing the saddle. The saddle's already down, but I'm going to show you how I did it. So this is a fake operation, but this is the process. So when I was lowering the saddle, I determined from the spec sheets that I wanted the height out of the bridge to be pretty much 100 thousandths of an inch off out of the bridge across the board, and that's a solution that's going to work. I would really rather this be about 85, but I don't want to go that low on this guitar yet. So anyway, the point is, you measure the bridge, measure the saddle, right there, just like that, and get your measurements. Well, it looks like I could go down about 5 thousandths of an inch here, which we might do, just to show you how it's done. Yeah, I could go down about another 5 thousandths, so let's do that, just for fun. About another 5 there, too. Another 5. And we're going to leave this up. So I could go ahead and lower this side, and you can see it realistically. Alright, so tape the bridge up. Run a piece of tape across here. You can use 2 pieces if you want. Oh, I probably measured the tape. That's what I was doing. Yeah, that's what I did. I measured the tape and that measurement. Alright, so a couple ways you can lower a saddle that's in the bridge without taking it off. One way is to use a utility razor blade and you just scrape it. That's a good way to do it. If you have a utility razor blade, you know. Another way is just take your file. And again, if you're scared about any of this, put a cover on it. I don't trust covers because I've had them get dirt and stuff under the cover, and you think I'm doing great, and you take it off and you scratch the top up because there was something under the cover. I prefer to just do it right. What I do with a file is I'll hold my fingers underneath it, and that way nothing's going to hit the top, you see, and I've got an automatic depth and just scrape straight across. When I use a razor blade, I do the same thing. I hold my fingers here so that I'm straight, and I go straight across the thing like this, okay? So let's take about 5/1000 of an inch off of this, and I'm just going to go straight across like this. Okay, I happen to think that's going to be about right. Because I was measuring the tape before is what I was doing. And so that was affecting it. Yeah, so we're good. And then by the time I have the tape, anyway. All right, now, when you get that down where you want it, take a pencil and mark the top of your saddle like this. And I'm doing what I call a stealth compensation. So when I'm shaping this top, I'm going to move that low E back very subtly. I'm not going to make a dramatic S-curved compensation like this saddle is. You know, the wavy thing. It's a straight line from the low E across, from the low E across over here to the D, to the G. G is as far forward. G and D are as far forward as they go, A is in the middle, and E is as far back. So a straight line will just cut across there. Same thing with the B. The B goes as far back as it'll go, the little E is in the middle. Alright, now to cut your compensation or to reshape this, you can do a couple things. You can use the curved section here on a razor, and you can just draw it across like this, lay it at an angle, draw it across, and that'll give you a round crown with no compensation. I like to use the same file that I use for frets. And this one cuts right out to the end, which means that I can hold my finger out like this, and I can bring that down here and shape this top back. Now, and the reason you have your pencil line in there so you can see what you're doing. As long as you leave that pencil line in there, you're not going to change the height of the saddle appreciably. So I'm bringing this back. I'm going to bring that low E back as far as it'll go. Or pretty much. As far as it'll go. And then take it and roll the rear edge. So you roll your file like this to smooth the back edge out. And you can do this clear across the top, just like a fret. So I'm getting it sanded clear across the top here. Bring the camera down. This is where I shut it off last time, because I accidentally touched the off button. But you take your file like this and you just roll it. Hold your fingers down here so that if you slip, you've got control of that file. That's good. Set that there. Piece of 400, 320, whatever grit sandpaper. Get it wet. And smooth your edges out here. Just using my finger. I still got the pencil on. And I'm going to smooth all these edges out. Okay? Then I have a cloth like this that is saturated with rubbing compound. And so just rub the saddle. This is an authentic, so I don't need it shining, you know, like a mirror. It should look sort of vintage-ish. I just don't want it dull. And I don't want the file marks in there. And then you sand it up, and there you go. Now I've adjusted the action. So, what we did here is we just did a quick and dirty setup on a pretty much out of the box acoustic guitar. This is very, very similar to what I did with the Epiphone Joe Bonamassa Les Paul that I did in a previous video just prior to this. The difference here is that this is an acoustic guitar setup, so we can't just go turning screws to adjust the saddles. We've got to actually physically adjust the with a file or something. The second thing is this particular guitar does not have an adjustable truss rod, so we don't have an adjustment there. If we did have an adjustment, I would do it exactly like I did the Les Paul, and I would reach in there, crank it just a little bit, lower the relief, get it down where I wanted. This relief is acceptable. The nut slots were pretty good. I dropped the saddle down to get it where I wanted it. Looks, pretty good now. It's lower than it was when I started, yeah, but it's still pretty good. I'm going to clean this up right here. It's got that dust on it. So this is good, That saddle's 100,000ths of an inch across the board, and that's not great. I wish it was a little higher, but it's acceptable for now. And it may stay like that forever. I mean, it'll be, be fine. So I am going to now, not part of this video, but just for fun, I'm going to go ahead and take this guitar over here, and I'm going to hook it up to the Magic Probe, and I'm going to get the top specs. And you'll probably see that at some later date. And again, watch for tomorrow, where I A/B this guitar with an Outlaw 17. So this is a setup that you can pretty much do if you have any kind of handiness with tools. It didn't take much. I mean, I used a hardware store, 6-inch file, and a utility razor blade. I used a set of feeler gauges wherever they went. Here they are. I used a set of feeler gauges from the auto parts store, $7 for these things. This is my most used tool, by far. My second most used tool, a pair of dial calipers. You can get these anywhere. You can get them Harbor Freight. These are StewMac. These are old ones, and these are really good. I've had these forever. They're not battery powered. They're not digital. They're just dial calipers. I use my dial calipers, my feeler gauges, constantly. Every guitar that hits this bench, feeler gauges, dial calipers. So this is not really hard stuff to do, and even if you don't want to tackle it yourself, at least you know how to check your guitar, okay? And that's important stuff. So let's take a look inside this. Cool, huh? No popsicle brush, that's stock. And you can see that full scalloping. And this is, again, it's a 1937 D-18 authentic. So it has full scalloping, has a forward X bracing. So you had a chance to look at everything inside there. Alright, last thing. I like to run antique acoustic pins on here. Those are my favorite bridge pins for a guitar like this. It came with water buffalo horn, which are not bad. I like water buffalo horn pins, but I don't like the heads on these. These are tall heads. I'll show you. Get this bag open. Here's the heads of the antique acoustic, and here's the water buffalo. And you can see this is the water buffalo, this is the antique acoustic, and the head on the water buffalo is not quite right. The groove is too thick right here compared to the antique acoustic. So they're good pins, but I'm going to run antique acoustic. First thing I'm going to do is make sure they fit, and they do. They fit really good. So I'm going to knock off 6 of them here. I'm going to go over to the Magic Probe and get the top specs, and then we're going to string it up. So on the whole, what I found out about this guitar is that the nut slots are really good, the relief is really good, the action is high, but I had enough saddle to lower it. And there's our saddle right now. We've got 100,000ths of an inch of saddle. which is, you know, it's alright. I wish it was 125, but 100,000 is just not bad. It's still going to have a pretty decent brake angle. And the most important thing is I did get the action down. It does not need a neck reset right now. It'd be cool if that saddle was 20 thousandths of an inch taller than it is now. But it's not. There it is. So it's fine. It'll work. My D-18 41 Authentic is 100 thousandths of an inch tall. And it got sent to me in need of a neck reset. I took a look at it and I said, you know, it's not that bad. It doesn't really need a neck reset. I ended up buying that guitar. And I've had it for 3 years or 4 years now, and I still haven't done a neck reset on it. It's been really, really stable, and it's doing great. Got 100 thousandths of an inch saddle. I've never noticed a thing about it. Everybody raves about it on all my videos, so it always wins every single comparison. So it's not like it doesn't sound good. So I'm happy with that. So I'm going to do the magic probe on it, find out what I got. I'm going to string it up, and then that's about it. Okay, I'll play it later on. I'm going to do a comparison tomorrow with this guitar and the Outlaw 17. So tune in tomorrow. I just wanted to show you here the process of giving a quick setup check on the acoustic guitar as opposed to the electric guitar. I did not have a truss rod adjustment on this one. So really, if the nut was good, all I could do is the saddle. But I showed you once again how to measure things, how to check things, what order to check for them. And so you can use this information if you're looking at a guitar that you're thinking about buying. Okay? See you later.